Ronald the Rules Lawyer. I got my copy of Pathfinder's new book, Battlecry, which has two new classes, the Commander and Guardian, and new rules for the game. Today I cover the Guardian class, and there were a lot of complaints about it during the playtest of this class. People were saying that it was too weak. Did they fix it? Well, first let me introduce myself. I'm Ronald the Rules Lawyer. I am a lawyer who runs tabletop role-playing games. My preferred system is Pathfinder 2e. Support my Patreon. I don't make money as an attorney. For an explanation as to why, look at the video whose thumbnail is on the screen. Supporting my Patreon allows me to continue this channel and gives you ad-free early access to most of my videos and exclusive content. When the playtest for the Guardian and Commander happened last spring of 2024, I did a whole live playtest with players from my Discord server and had a discussion with them before and after and collected all that feedback and made this hour-and-a-half long video giving feedback on the playtest. One of the things I talked about was the idea of a tank class, which was clearly their goal, and defining tanking as not only being able to withstand blows, but needing to draw attention to yourself, make the enemies want to attack you instead of your allies, which poses a design challenge in a system like Pathfinder 2e, which does not have opportunity attacks or reactive strikes, as they're called in this system, where being able to move freely around the battlefield is considered a fundamental part of what makes combat fun. And also a system that was kind of avoiding taunt mechanics, where you force an enemy to come at you and attack you. I also pointed out in my feedback video that you want it to be a meat shield plus X, plus something. For example, the champion class is a meat shield and draws attention to itself, but also can heal and support allies. The barbarian can draw attention to itself by the fact that they're so strong offensively and do a lot of damage, and they can do a lot of damage. The guardian was in a weird place because one of the decisions that was consciously made in the playtest was to give them less offensive accuracy and power than other martial classes, which makes it harder to get the enemy's attention to make them want to attack you. And they were trying to find ways to make them attack you. And one of those ways was the taunt action, which in the playtest gave that enemy, if you succeeded, a bonus of +2 in attacking you, which also made it more likely that they'd critically hit you. And it felt off mechanically and thematically for many people. Hence my cheeky thumbnail. Well, the final Guardian in Battlecry has definitely been buffed. But did they buff it enough? Have they fixed it? Well, we'll see. Now, a caveat, I am in my casual era, so I have many things competing for my attention. So I'm not going to go exhaustively over the features of the new Guardian and its feats. I'm going to go over the main features and notable changes from the playtest and certain feats that I thought were worth mentioning. First thing to say is that the Guardian is tougher. They have strength as their key attribute, like before, but they now have 12 hit points per level, whereas before it was 10. They now get the same number that barbarians do, which was a very common thing that was asked for during the playtest. The playtest Guardian had a class feature that basically gave it some damage resistance, which gave them the armor specialization effects of wearing medium or heavy armor. And for most armor types, that meant having resistance 1 or 2 to bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. And you could add the plus from your magic armor to that resistance as you found better armor. Well, this has been straight up buffed. In the final version, you get resistance to all physical damage, so bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, and apparently bleed damage, which is in a weird place. And it's equal to 1 plus half of your level. The number's about the same, but it applies to all physical damage now, and it scales much better, so that when you're at level 20, you get resistance 11 to all physical damage. This is, of course, on top of your 12 hit points per level. As far as I can tell, this gives you the best resistance to damage of any class or archetype in the game. The taunt action has gotten a major rework. Here's the old taunt, where basically you taunted a foe within 30 feet. They could even be mindless. It took an action, and they had a will saving throw. And so long as they didn't critically succeed, they got a bonus of +2 in attacking you. The upside was that if they ever made attacks that did not include you, they got a penalty to their attack. There are some issues with this. One, it clearly makes you more vulnerable, but also if they made attacks that included you, it was a net minus for you. And it was better if they critically succeeded on their saving throw in that situation. Well, instead of saying shoot me in the face and critically hit me, it's now a strict debuff to the foe. The limitations on what you can target are the same. It still applies to mindless creatures. And there's no check involved. It's automatic. They no longer get a bonus in attacking you. And when they attack one of your allies and don't include you, they get a flat -1 circumstance penalty to that attack. And additionally, if they do so, if they ignore you, then they become off guard until the start of their next turn. And you can kind of justify it thematically that while they're trying to focus on your allies, they're distracted by you and your imposing presence. Since there's no roll required, this is now more reliable, and it's also less cumbersome in play. You can have only one taunt in effect at a time, however, until you get a higher level feat that lets you taunt 3 things at once. Also, I may be mistaken, but I think this is new. They now have a few feats that proc off of this mechanic, where you get to have some effect on a foe if they're taunted by you. Here is the level 4 feat, Proud Nail. If they are off guard because they ignored you with an attack, you can use one action to attack them and get extra damage. Up to 3 extra damage dice at the highest levels. The level 6 feat, Ring Their Bell, is similar. If they're off guard because they ignored you, you get to do an unarmed strike against them, and they make a saving throw, and it can stun them. Even on a successful saving throw that's not a critical success, they are stunned 1. So we see this idea of debuffing and denying actions to foes, which was one of the points that Swing Ripper and I made that I conveyed in my feedback video, that one of the things you want to do as a tank is draw attention to yourself, and debuffing foes and denying them actions is definitely a way to draw attention to yourself. It's nice to see these actions that proc off of taunting a foe, though I wish there could have been more in this book. Maybe we'll see more in the future. And on the idea of debuffing foes, there's more feats that I won't show all of, but one of them is this, Shield Wallop, a level 8 feat, where you get to bash somebody with your shield, and if you deal any damage, they become stupefied. Very disruptive to a spellcaster. Another notable feat is Belly Flop, I like its name, where you spend an action to fall prone, fall onto something, and then do an unarmed strike against them, and if you succeed, they are immobilized. Talk about battlefield control. You're literally sitting on them and preventing them from moving. You may be prone, but you have your armor class and your reactions to protect you. Now, I think there's an errata that's going to come out for this, by the way, because for them to escape the immobilized condition, they have to escape against your athletics DC. But it says you add your armor's item bonus to that DC. And if you're wearing full plate armor, even if it's not magical, that is adding 6 to your DC. Now, I think what's intended here is that your armor's potency rune, its addition to your item bonus to AC, is the bonus here. The next big action you get as a class feature, as a Guardian, is Intercept Strike. At least that's what it was called in the playtest. If you were adjacent to an ally and they took physical damage, you get to interpose yourself and take that damage instead. And you had resistance to all damage equal to 2 plus your level. Well, they have lowered the amount of resistance you get. However, you are more flexible in being able to use it. The ally needs to be within 10 feet of you instead of adjacent to you, and you can step as part of this reaction. And you take the damage instead, and get to apply your own immunities, weaknesses, and resistances. And remember, you have the Guardian's Armor class feature, so you're reducing it by some damage. Also, if the foe is one of your taunted enemies, the ally can be 15 feet away from you, and your reaction can incorporate a whole stride, not just a step. So you can stride into a good position so long as you're adjacent to that ally. Also, it's called Intercept Attack now, not Strike, which is more accurate because it just needs to be physical damage against your ally. It doesn't have to be from a strike. The next class feature is something you got at level 7 in the playtest. Now it's level 1, called Ever Ready. Whenever combat starts and you roll initiative, you always have a reaction. You don't have to depend on circumstances or the GM telling you you have a reaction before your first turn. The reaction has to be from a Guardian class feature or feat, however, which is nice because you can protect yourself because you also have the shield block general feat at level 1 for free as a Guardian, and you have Intercept Attack. So you are basically always protecting yourself and an ally that you're near, even if you lose the initiative contest. This next class feature is a straight up buff, and a significant one. At 7th level, you get an additional reaction at the start of each of your turns that can be used on Guardian feats and class features. You also have this before your first turn in combat. This gives you a lot more flexibility and ability to protect yourself and your allies. You can now double shield block. Also, when you protect your ally with intercept attack and direct that damage against yourself, you can shield block against that damage. There's quite a few Guardian reactions you can get from feats, including Reactive Strike, which is a level 6 feat for the Guardian. Also, I'm going to skip ahead a bit and talk about a level 20 feat, Boundless Reprisals, which gives you an extra reaction for each enemy turn. So not only does this give you a new reaction for every enemy turn, and if all your allies are within 10 feet of you, you can intercept attack against each one. But you can also save your reactions and use 3 reactions against the same enemy. So if that dragon does a Draconic Frenzy, 3 attacks against you or your allies, you can use a total of 3 reactions on those attacks. These bonus reactions synergize with other Guardian feats. Here's one example, a level 14 feat called Blanket Defense. You spend 3 actions to raise a shield, and until your next turn, any ally who ends their turn next to you gets the benefit of your raised shield and its armor class. And you can use your shield block reactions to protect your allies. Another concern I had about the playtest Guardian was their inferior accuracy compared to other martials, because you want to draw attention from foes and deal some hits. Well, it looks like they've addressed that. They give you expert in strikes at 5th level, just like other martials, most other martials, and mastery at level 13. And also, I don't think people who had the class fantasy of being a domineering tank drawing attention like the idea of being worse at just hitting people. However, the weapon specialization and greater weapon specialization class features that give you bonus damage that martials get is still delayed for Guardians, which I suppose is okay. A hit is still a hit. And since they get buffs in the defense department, something had to go. And yes, they get expertise with medium and heavy armor at level 5. This means at level 5 you can get the godly armor class of 26 if you have magic armor, which is going to be 3 higher than most of your allies. And if you have a tower shield and raise it and take cover behind it, you have an AC of 30. This becomes mastery at level 11 and legendary at level 15 for medium and heavy armors. Compared to the playtest, they also made light armor and unarmored defense lag behind instead of be stagnant. As I said, this is not an exhaustive video. There's some class features that you get as you advance in levels that are less core to the Guardian because they're not first level, that were in the playtest already, and I'm not going to cover them here. However, there are some significant feats to talk about, or changes to feats in some cases. First, the playtest had a very powerful feat at level 2 called Hampering Sweeps that many people viewed as a must-pick, where basically you spent an action and caused every foe within your reach, so a wide area if you had a reach weapon, to not be able to leave your weapon's reach on their turn. It was definitely a way to get people's attention because they couldn't leave you. Well, what this book does is effectively make it a feat tree that together kind of approximate what this one feat used to do. At level 2, there's a feat called Hampering Stance. It takes an action to enter, which makes every square adjacent to you difficult terrain for enemies only. So very good for protecting your allies in narrow spaces. If you like that, you might be interested in the level 4 feat called Not So Fast, a Guardian reaction. You must be in Hampering Stance, but basically if a foe tries to leave a square that you threaten, you make a melee strike against that foe. And you do damage with that strike, which is nice, of course, but also you can lessen their speed. And if you critically hit, you disrupt their movement for that particular move action. Even if it's a miss and it's not a critical miss, they travel 5 less feet. Then there's the level 6 feat Lockdown, which basically works like Hampering Sweeps, but you spend an action doing this, you need to be in Hampering Stance, and you have to make a strike and hit with the strike for them to not be able to leave the reach of your weapon. Doing this does occupy that weapon. You cannot use that weapon to attack something else. It also has the Flourish trait, which means you can only attempt it once per turn. It only works on one foe, and you have to hit them, so not as powerful as Hampering Sweeps, which will make some people sad, but I think most people are happy with this change and think that what was in the playtest was too strong. Another standout feat for me, it's quite simple, is a level 2 feat called Taunting Strike, where it's a flourish action. Only once per turn you can try it, but you make a strike, and if you land, you taunt the target. Nice and simple. And you get the class fantasy of being an imposing warrior who's drawing attention to yourself simply by hitting things. And of course, it is better action economy for using one of your main class features. It's also somewhat reminiscent of D&D 4th edition's Fighter, which marked any foe that they make an attack against. though this has to actually land in order for the foe to be marked here in this instance. Plus, you get to make them easier to hit here. The next feat I thought was interesting on the theme of hampering enemies and tying them up. It's called Juggernaut Charge, level 8, where you spend 2 actions to stride up to a foe, make a strike against them, and then stride again. If your strike landed, you can drag that foe with you for your entire stride action. At least compared to 4E, Pathfinder is kind of stingy with its force movement, and here's an ability that lets you move them quite a distance. Here's another feat, also not in the playtest, a level 14 feat called Keep Up the Good Fight. As a reaction, when an enemy would reduce you to 0 hit points that would not kill you, you get to stay at 1 hit point, your wounded value goes up. So this is like the ferocity ability for orcs. However, this works once per hour instead of once per day. The last feats I'll comment on are the level 20 feats, because why not? I already talked about Boundless Reprisals earlier. The other ones are Great Shield Mastery, where basically if you have a tower shield, or those shields where basically you can get a +4 to your armor class if you spend not only an action to raise the shield, but another action to take cover. Great Shield Mastery means you don't have to take cover. You can just raise your shield and get that +4 right away. The other one is Unyielding Force, where basically your level 1 class feature that reduced incoming physical damage, your resistance goes up by 5. So now it's 6 plus half of your level, which by this time would be resistance 16 to all physical damage. Now I'll quickly cover the Guardian archetype. The Dedication feat requires a +2 in Strength and in Constitution. You basically get the Taunt action. In addition, you get the Athletics skill and proficiency in light and medium armor. If you already had those armor proficiencies, you get heavy armor proficiency. And these armor proficiencies keep pace with improvements in your defense that you get from your class. Then you get the usual archetype feats that let you take class feats from the class, and one to improve your hit points. Additionally, a level 6 feat gives you the Intercept attack reaction, and at level 8 you get resistance to physical damage, similar to what the class feature for the Guardian gives them, but this only takes effect when you're directing damage to yourself with your Intercept attack reaction. Then there's a high level feat to improve your Fortitude saves to Master. What's notably missing here is the ability to get an extra reaction that the Guardian gets at level 7. Alright, so some final thoughts on the final Guardian. It is tougher, more hit points, more damage reduction. They're always ready to use their reaction at all times. They get an extra reaction at level 7, which lets them use their 2 main features at level 1 in tandem, a significant buff from before. Taunt is no longer a give and take, it's just an unambiguous net plus. And it's also guaranteed now, no having to make a roll each time, so it's less fiddly. One of the downsides of the playtest is that when you were fighting a boss, you gave them a +2 to attack you, and those bosses already were likely to critically hit you or had a fair chance to. It was very scary. Now, you giving a -1 to attacking your allies, that's quite effective against, again, a solo boss. There's very few ways to impose a circumstance penalty to an enemy in this way. This stacks with status penalties and other things you can do to the foe. You're no longer able to impose a -2 or -3 penalty on the enemy, but I'm guessing it's a net plus, not having to make yourself vulnerable. And for many foes, you succeed at getting them to either attack you to the exclusion of your allies, or becoming off guard to your entire party. 2 outcomes that you probably want. There seems to be more emphasis on debuffing foes, and that was one of the things I had proposed in my video. I hope it had an impact, where we said there are other ways to draw attention to yourself besides dealing damage or getting in the way. You also get more reach with your Intercept strike reaction, which is nice. Now, did they fix the Guardian? Well, I'm not sure. I'm a lawyer. I need to rely on evidence, and this will have to be played out. But from my first read, it does seem like there's now parity between this class and other classes. It seems like to me. Maybe there's something I missed. I would like to see what people watching think about this topic. Anyway, I'm in my casual era, and I don't know if I can think nuanced thoughts right now. One thing that came up in the playtest discussions with my playtest group was the desire to have a Guardian that didn't have to be heavily armored. And here, that was not addressed. They're very much dependent on having medium or heavy armor still. But as you can tell from the artwork for the class, they kind of are going for that tanky fantasy. They have a clear concept of what they're going for here. Also, one of the things I brought up in my video was, hey, why don't they have the commander feat defensive swap? Which seems at first glance to be a better way to protect your allies than intercept strike, or intercept attack, it's now called. The commander still has it, just like the playtest commander did, where basically if an adjacent ally is the target of an attack, you and your ally can switch places. And this is also true the other way around. If you're the target of an attack, you and your ally, you can switch places. But the advantage of this is that you have a really great armor class, and you want to use that armor class, especially if your shield is raised. The current Guardian reaction simply transfers the damage your ally took to you. So if you're protecting a squishy caster who just got critically hit, you are critically hit. So I don't know, I thought, it would have been good for something like this to be in the Guardian kit or list of feats. At least the ability to make yourself the target and not vice versa. Unless there's something I'm not noticing, yeah, this seems like something that should have been there. And maybe this will be seen as an essential archetype feat to take for Guardians, I don't know. Another thing I'm surprised didn't make it into the final Guardian class is something like Retributive Strike, the champion ability, if they're of the Justice subclass, where if an ally takes damage, you get to strike that foe. It seemed like a very Guardian-y thing to do to me. Maybe it didn't need the damage reduction and have the power of a class feature, but if for some design reason they didn't want this for the Guardian, maybe they thought it was too powerful, it's still attainable through the base rules, through the champion archetype. You can get this champion's reaction with a level 6 archetype feat in the champion archetype. And given your bonus reactions as a Guardian, you could do quite a lot outside your turn. You can Retributive Strike and Intercept Attack outside your turn. So that's my coverage of the Guardian class. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Support my Patreon. It lets me keep doing videos. Doing so gives you ad-free early access to most of my videos and exclusive content. Also join my Discord. There are over 6,000 of us. I hang out there a lot. We talk Pathfinder 2e and other gaming. And if you want to play Pathfinder, we have a drop-in, drop-out organized play system called Endless Tale Tavern. So that's it. I've been Ronald the Rules Lawyer. See you next time.